So, boys, I stay tuned. There's a gewaldige podcast. Rabbi Steve Geller does a gewaldige Zach, and that'll be coming out this week. Torah Giants on Chumash. Shalom Uvrach, and welcome to the weekly piece on the Parsha from Torah Giants on Chumash, written by Rabbi Meir Goodman, the Rabbi Emeritus of Yunus Rockaway. Sit back and enjoy.
Welcome to Torah Giants on Chumash. I'm Steve Geller. All the Divrei Torah in Rabbi Goodman's set came from notes he made of memorable things he learned throughout his life. But this week's piece will be something you won't be able to forget, as you've heard this pasuk laid every year in Shelach and emphasized famously every year on Yom Kippur. After beseeching Hashem for forgiveness after the sin of the spies, Hashem says, "Salachti kidvarecha," I have forgiven according to your word. Rabbi Goodman asks two questions on this pasuk. First, had Hashem only said, "Salachti, I have pardoned," would we not have understood that he accepted Moshe's argument? Then Moshe begins his plea referring to Egypt. Then Egypt, from whose midst you brought up this nation, will hear. But then 3 psukim later changes it to, the nations that heard your fame will say Hashem lacked the ability to bring the people to the land. Rav Shaul Brach, Rav of Kashau, Hungary, at the turn of the 19th century, in his Sefer Behios HaBoker, analyzes Moshe's words. He concludes that Moshe was anxious to protect the people not only from the immediate danger of annihilation, but for all generations to come, if there was no great spokesman alive to plead for them. The argument about preventing a Chil Hashem by annihilating Bnei Israel is one that is relevant for any age. Hashem understood his intent and therefore emphasized Salachti kidvarecha, according to your word, to indicate that indeed he will never destroy his chosen people. Moshe's intent was evident in the fact that he changed his pleas from Egypt to speak of all nations, implying concerns for all generations. Surely this is why we highlight this phrase on the evening of Yom Kippur, in case we're a generation that Hashem considers unworthy. This analysis also explains the comment in the Gemara, Brachas 32a, according to your word it will be, as indeed in the future the nations of the world will say this. It is God's promise that in any generation our utilizing this defense will bring Hashem's forgiveness. As deep and beautiful of a concept this is, our holy Rabbi Eytan Feiner, Rav of the White Shul in Far Rockaway, has once again so generously given us his incredible insights into the deeper eternal meaning of this piece by Rav Brach.
Shalom Uvracha, those enjoying this fantastic and entertaining at times, but certainly stimulating and enlightening podcast with Rabbi Steve Geller. What a gem this week, really, a sefer that's quite obscure, Bios HaBoker, that who else but Rabbi Goodman, Shlita, is going to quote in his unbelievable Torah Giants on Chumash. So here we are on page 102, and number 82, the part in that list forever. You just heard a beautiful piece by Rabbi Steve about Moshe Rabbeinu's intent, and there's so many lessons to be drawn and gleaned from this statement of Moshe Rabbeinu, who is having in mind not just his own generation, but that is not only a leader, that is any Chacham, Ezu Chacham, HaRoes Anola. The Gemara tells us in Talmud Daf Lamed Beis Amud Aleph, the truly wise person is the one who looks into the future. That's a Moshe Rabbeinu, but not just the Chacham that he was. First and foremost, the leader that he was. The paradigm of what true Torah leadership is all about, the selfless devotion, care, concern, the boundless love, and the sacrifice, the self-sacrifice of Moshe Rabbeinu, wherein the Gemara tells us in Brachas Lamed Beis Amud Aleph, he was willing to put his whole life on the line. Olam haz, olam haba, everything and anything for Klal Yisrael. Always thinking to save Klal Yisrael. But the leader that is going to be at the helm of the Jewish people is not even just thinking about self-sacrifice in my day and age, in my tekufa, and my generation. He's thinking until the end of time. And perhaps that explains a beautiful idea where the Arizal HaKodesh writes that there's a nitzitz, there's a spark of Moshe Rabbeinu in every single manig, and every single Jewish leader, and the leaders of every respective generation, from the day of Moshe Rabbeinu until Bias Kol Tzedek, until the arrival of Mashiach Tzidkenu, there's a metaphysical spark, a nitzitz of Moshe Rabbeinu's gargantuan, huge, indescribable neshama, and there's a piece of that lofty soul that attaches itself to the neshama of every single leader in every single generation. That's why the Chida adds in a few places that in Shas, when we encounter Moshe Shapir Ka'amris, and that's a urban. So what? Moshe Rabbeinu, there's a spark in Moshe in that given Matana, in that given Amora, there's a piece of Moshe Rabbeinu and everybody. Why? Because it's Moshe Rabbeinu who guaranteed, who safeguarded our perpetuity, our continuity through time. It's Moshe Rabbeinu with what? Salati Kidvaracha. We have a piece of Moshe Rabbeinu because what? It's not just about Mitzrayim. It's about every one of the nations, and they're going to persecute us. And who's going to be the one to save us? Moshe Rabbeinu implanted into the leaders of Klal Yisrael. They have the Yecholes, they have the wherewithal, the ability. Why? Because there's a piece of Moshe. That's Gadlus. That's the job of every leader. That's the job of every parent. That's the job of each and every one of you, to put a piece of you into your children. To say what? We know in the world of chinuch so much more than that which is taught as that which is caught. They should see it in you. They should borrow a piece of you, of your neshama. Brokhared yavua. The idea being there's a piece of the parent, of the father in the child, and that's how people should see the children, as an extension, in the sense that of course they have their own identity, their own tafkid, their own unique task and job that they've got to accomplish in this world, but you got to give them a piece of chinuch or what? And there's a piece of, they automatically, instantaneously, they know their parents' way of thinking, put a piece of them in you. And that's why I just started with a beautiful part by the Chosem Lublin. The Pasuk in Tehillim and David HaMelech's book of Psalms, Kapitel Tzadi Tes, and number 99 in verse 6. What do we read? David writes, Moshe ve'Aaron bicho anav, u'Shmuel b'kori shemo. Ask the Chosem Lublin, Moshe v'Aaron bicho anav, Moshe v'Aaron in their Kohanim. What do you mean in their Kohanim? It doesn't read, doesn't make any sense. Explains the Chosem Lublin, because there's a piece of Moshe v'Aaron bicho anav. They made sure to do what? Not just to teach the next generation, not to teach their Talmidim, their disciples, their offspring, to teach them in a way that they infuse a piece of themselves into them. Moshe Rabbeinu says, if I love Klal Yisrael, I'm not just going to save this generation. I want to save every generation. How are we going to do it? Moshe implanted in the spiritual DNA of Klal Yisrael. And indeed, what did he do? He took a piece of himself and put it into every subsequent leader of Klal Yisrael. When we're not going to know how to daven like Moshe, and we won't be on the spiritual level of Moshe, we'll be able to tap, and it's in the depth of what the Moshe Rabbeinu was. There'll be a piece of Moshe in every single leader. And Mora Rabbi said, there's a piece of your parents, your illustrious ancestors, Moshe v'Aaron bichonov, inside each and every one of you. You'll know. Think of them. Think to the past generations. Say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, oh, we need to be saved. Let's be Zoicha together to get to be as called Tzedek v'Meirav Yameinu Amen.
Nothing is a coincidence, but the next line in that Gemara in Brachas explains a common phenomenon that actually is probably responsible for our holy Rav Eytan Feiner, to be involved with this project. At the conclusion of Hashem being modeh to Moshe, v'solachti kidvarecha, the Gemara in Brachas continues, Ashrei Talmud, happy is the student, Sharabo, whose Rebbe, modelo, concedes to him. To be honest, I too often bother Rav Feiner with my original Torah thoughts, though I don't believe I've yet to gain his concession on any, but that doesn't stop me from continuing to try. And it doesn't stop me from reminding you how easy it is to pass along this beautiful piece from Rabbi Goodman and Rav Feiner to friends and family. You know the routine by now. Just like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and hit that share button to send the link to friends and family by text, email, or your social media of choice. It's the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. You know they'll thank you for it, and it helps realize the potential of Rabbi Goodman's life's work and gift to us, Torah Giants on Chumash.
Comes back again. Why? Because it's as if Moshe Rabbeinu is tidying it again. It's not that he said it, but it's as if there's a piece of Moshe that it's there in the tefilos of the leaders. There's a spark of that Moshe Rabbeinu inside each and every one of them. And in it, as you please, Reb Steve.